Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome to the Computer America Show, everyone. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, welcome into the program. So today on the show, we have an entire program dedicated to computer and technology news, where we'll be talking all about the latest, the greatest, and things that you should know about, things that you should hear about. And trust me, there are a lot of stories and a lot of different things that, hey, we try our best to keep up to date, but even we, with our infinite free time, find it really hard to, kind of keep up with, try to keep up with the latest computer and technology news. So with that being said, everyone, before we get started, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including show notes. You'll find articles, reviews. You'll find past shows, future shows, video archive, audio archive. You'll find podcasts, everything and more at computeramerica.com. While you're there, be sure to check out the most recent article that we just put up, the 5 scariest things in tech. Not to give it away, but I promise it will. If you've been listening to the show religiously, then hey, you probably know a lot of what's on that list. But it's nice to have it in one simple place, something that we can point to, and something that we can say that, yeah, these are true problems in technology. And I don't mean by 5 scariest things in tech. I don't mean the 5 scariest projectors or things like that. I mean concepts in technology. So everyone, let's see, anything else that I should mention? Yesterday's show with Catalyst Case, definitely enjoyed having them on, and you should definitely check out that program if you didn't have a chance to listen to it yesterday. But yeah, hey, everyone, I know that, the podcast version of the show has been doing really, really well lately, and I want to thank everyone out there who's been helping make that happen, and yeah, keep listening. Now, all that being said, welcome into the Computer America Show one last time. Why don't we go ahead and get started with computer and technology news, which is brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news. And I think our first story that we're going to do has to do with a lot of different ones. Okay, how about a quick security breach? We won't linger on this too long. And yeah, well, actually, even before we do that one, I have an email, actually, and this was received by Computer America from NordVPN, and I actually have to pull up. I actually have to pull up the email just to get kind of the talking points. So yesterday. And yesterday on the program, let's see, I put it in this particular folder, which is a pretty good catch-all. This has to do with yesterday's story, and it is in regards to the data center breach. So I wanted to get this out there because obviously we did the story yesterday, and hey, we called up NordVPN pretty handedly, saying that kind of the buck stops with them. They are the ones who are renting the servers to which they are giving to other people. And, we went through the article saying that security researchers around the world freely admit that NordVPN doesn't exactly know what traffic might or might not have been compromised because by definition, by their own design, their company does not track that kind of thing. So overall, it was, a pretty bad look for NordVPN, and the story had been getting a lot of recent attention, even though the story actually happened a couple of months ago. So, we still said NordVPN was a good service. We didn't say stop using them. This will happen to anyone and everyone, especially those who are running security-focused products, because when security things happen, it tarnishes their brand the most. So I wanted to go back, and I just received this yesterday after we did the program, and I wanted to, get out some of their key points, and this is directly from NordVPN. So they said the facts, as they are known to NordVPN, there are no signs showing that any of our customers were affected or that their data was accessed by the malicious actor. And I guess a quick recap, someone was unfortunately able to get into physically get into the facility that hosted one of the servers that was one of the possible servers that you could connect to through NordVPN. VPN, Virtual Private Network, it allows you to reroute your traffic through a series of servers. So it's not just from, let's say you type in google.com and you go from you go from your computer, you go through whatever internet provider that you're using, and then you connect to one of Google's own servers that will then, or I should say, let's just say Comcast or Verizon or one of these servers, who then pings Google servers. So there's a pretty direct correlation there from, Ben wants to access Google and will handle the transaction. What a VPN does is that it kind of masks that a little bit, which is great for privacy-focused messages, and trust me, a lot of remote desktop and remote, work from home kind of facilities, especially if you're handling anything in the medical field or anything confidential, they want you to connect to a VPN just because that communication that is supposed to stay internal, this is one of the best ways to kind of keep it a secret. So VPNs are useful for, let's say Ben wants to go to Google. It goes from, you get to choose one of 5,000 different servers through VPNs, through NordVPN service. And I could say that, I want to appear that I'm coming from Texas, or I'm coming from Finland, or I'm coming from Australia. And it will rewrite your traffic from your computer to any number of different jumps, which I think you can actually specify within the service itself, so that it's not very easy to track that this traffic is this traffic is this traffic. And then eventually you will pop out on the other side. It's encrypted the entire way through, because it encrypts on your computer, sends that encrypted information, and then decrypts it on one of NordVPN's servers. And the end result is that you get a secure transmission, and you get to appear that you are anywhere in the world. And like I said, 5,000 different servers. So this was one particular server was accessed physically by someone in a facility that is not owned or operated by NordVPN. But they were able to access the actual server, and they were able to get some of the private keys, so they could at least access the data that was coming out of that server. So 1 out of 5,000, if you are a user, the odds of you actually using this particular one were pretty slim. But let's get back to the first point. There are no signs showing that any of our customers were affected or that their data was accessed by the malicious actor. As we said before, security researchers around the globe have agreed that NordVPN doesn't know what data users are sending or they're trying to access. And they don't know, they just don't keep logs of that. So I don't know how they're able to, and I'm sure NordVPN, if you're listening to the show, love to have you come on and clarify these points, but I don't believe that NordVPN would be the first one to know what information was accessed from the server. So the second point, while being connected to the server, the hacker could only see what an ordinary ISP would see, but it could not have been personalized or linked to a particular user. We've mentioned this. No data is anonymous, depending on what kind of data was pooled. Let's say you tried to order Chinese food. You were using your VPN to access a server in Finland to order food to your house, and there was location-based data that was collected by your browser, which then connects to all of your other browser history with maybe payment information and things like that, browser history, so on and so forth. They could have been personalized and they could have been linked to a particular user. The odds of that, again, all of this is very astronomical. Like, it starts with 1 out of 5,000. And no offense to Finland, I don't know many people who are looking for Finland-based web services, so it's probably one of their lesser used servers to begin with. But we're talking very, very slims. I just don't see that as a possibility that they know the data that was collected could have been personalized or linked to a particular user. It could have. It definitely could have. So the intruder managed to gain access to a single server that they were renting from a Finnish data center, as I've been saying all along. The server itself did not contain any user activity logs. None of our applications send user-created credentials for authentication, so usernames and passwords could not have been intercepted. Exactly. So they said only what an ISP would see. So let's do a quick Google search here. Feed the beast a little bit more. What information does an ISP collect? So this is just very quick, and this is from another web service, but obviously, the article stands to reason. It knows the exact sites that you visit and your passwords that are inputted into the field. It knows your emails. They know whether or not you're torrenting. They know your Bitcoin transactions. And what can your ISP see if your data is encrypted? Well, they can show things like your Alexa. Let's say you have an Alexa or a smart digital assistant. That kind of information would be timed, and potentially, depending on what commands you send through your ISP and through your connected devices, you could expose your day-to-day routine. You can expose your inbound, outbound traffic, so on and so forth. Hey, there is information to be had even by basic ISPs. They said that our service as a whole was not hacked. Our code was not hacked. The VPN tunnel was not breached. The NordVPN application are not affected. It was an individual instance of unauthorized access to one of more than 5,000 servers that they have. Correct. NordVPN as a service, like I said at the very beginning, is still a very reliable service. I would not advise moving away from them just because of this one instance. It happens. It sucks that they are in the security field, so this is going to be seen as a bit more, haha, got you kind of moment. But overall, this is not. I don't want to say this isn't that big of a deal, but this is not a fault of NordVPN, other than maybe some kind of managing individual servers. So the hacker managed to access the server because of mistakes made by the data center owner, of which we were not aware, and I'm sure that mistake was by letting individuals into the facility who were not authorized to be there. First and foremost, that's going to be the one. Second one, letting that unauthorized individual access servers as they wanted to, which is another no-no. They should have been monitored and, told where they can go and explicitly stated, hey, you're not allowed to touch that one. So there were a number of failings by the actual server management. They said that as soon as we found out about the issue, we ceased our relationship with this particular data center and shredded the server. Shredded the server, I'm sure, means, completely deleting any kind of information that it may have had, and physically destroying, I'm sure, some parts of the server, and just otherwise, just not, that server is not accessible anymore. The problem with that kind of doublespeak from a PR agent, though, is that the moment, as soon as we found out, and unfortunately they found out a couple of months after, so that's kind of the problem. They said that it was not a targeted attack against NordVPN, as the media has discovered. At least 2 other VPN services were affected. There's a chance that other services that rented the servers from the data center could have been affected as well. Makes sense. Again, this doesn't seem like a particularly kind of narrow attack. This was someone who gained access, but this did come up with NordVPN. Like, I don't want to say that NordVPN was just caught in the crossfire and this was all a big accident. No, an individual actually did post private keys from NordVPN. So the last point here, the incident effectively showed that an affected server did not contain any user activity logs. Never said that they hosted those, so of course they wouldn't have them. To prevent any similar incidents, among other means, we encrypt the hard disk of each new server that we build. The security of our customers is the highest priority to us, and we will raise the standards even more. That's about all I wanted to hear from NordVPN, was that they saw a flaw. Obviously, this cannot happen again, and they're changing their practices moving forward. Security is not a one-time, oh, we'll get it this time, oh, we'll do better, or, it's like, oh, we are as safe can be, we are perfect, there is no flaw. No, security is an ever-evolving mission. The line moves all the time. And I'm very happy that they acknowledge that, and that they're, like they said, they're going to do better. I said that yesterday, that the real flaw in what NordVPN did was this idea that they needed to, how do we put this? They needed better control over the servers that they offer to their clients. And it looks like, as they said, they're encrypting the hard disk of each new server that they build, which means that only authorized users from NordVPN, the corporation, are going to have access to any kind of information on the server, and not just people who have access to the server itself. Because obviously anyone could come up, throw in a USB stick, and copy all the data. But no, this is now, even if you physically get the get the hardware, you're not going to have the information that's on it. So I'm glad that they were able to remedy this. They have a timeline here. The affected server was brought online January 31st, 2018. The evidence of the breach appeared in public March 5th, 2018. They have an asterisk here. Further evidence suggests that this information only became available soon after the breach actually occurred. And the potential for unauthorized access to the server was restricted when the data center deleted the undisclosed management account on March 20th, 2018. So the server was shredded April 13th, 2019, and the moment we suspected a possible breach. So the breach happened for about 7 months. So obviously, I'm hoping to get NordVPN. We are going to send a message out to get them on to explain this whole thing. But to recap, NordVPN is not a bad service. NordVPN is changing their methods going forward, which is great. NordVPN was compromised in a very small way, but they were compromised. That much is clear. So with that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and put a little ribbon on that. Yeah, that was a statement that we received yesterday. Funny that we actually did the story and then we immediately received this press release. So, okay. Now, the reason that kind of came to mind, obviously the email yesterday, really stuck out to me. But then even beyond that, this next article that we're going to do really brought this previous issue to the top of my head. But let's go ahead and move on. This next article has to do with, well, unsecured database exposes 179 gigabytes of U.S. Army and government personal data. So obviously, 179 gigabytes doesn't seem like that much. Most hard drives are in terabyte quantities now. But I guess the question is, what kind of information? Because if it's 179 gigabytes of recorded audio and video, hey, that's dozens of hours, but how much information is that really? Is that spreadsheets with text and basic information, including names, locations, things like that, then 179 gigs is a lot of data. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is from the Inquirer. Of all sources, the Inquirer, I know. They said that 179 gigs of sensitive data belonging to the U.S. Army and government personnel was exposed thanks to an unsecured cloud server run reservation platform, run by AutoClerk. So often, these are how these things happen. An unsecured cloud server, some kind of server that is not set up correctly, does not have a password, and is in no way encrypted. They have special bots. They have special crawlers that go out over the internet, search for these kinds of servers, and they ping right back. I mean, finding an unsecured server or finding an unsecured webcam or anything else connected to the internet really is about as hard as a Google search. It's not hard to find these things. It doesn't take a master hacker to gain access to these things. So the fact that they continue to happen is really, really bad. So obviously, the good news is the data leak was spotted and detailed by researchers at VPN Mentor, which noted that the exposed database contained the personal data of users of AutoClerk, as well as an overview of hotel guests and their travel reservations. And they have a quote here saying that in some cases, this included the check-in time and room number. It affects thousands of people across the globe, with millions of new records being added daily. I guess this is going to be pretty big. I mean, obviously now we know 179 gigs doesn't sound like a lot of video and audio, but if it's check-in time, room number, name, essentially being able to track people's whereabouts on a day-to-day basis, that may have some, I don't want to say credibility, that's not the right word, some value to individuals who are maybe looking for, really, if you're wondering what good is a check-in time, or what good is a room number, or what good is knowing that, let's say, Ben checked in to a hotel at such and such date. You think, well, after the person left, who really cares? What good is that information? Think about this. If someone wanted to do a very specific spear phishing attack, and spear phishing is just like phishing, and I don't mean like, the outdoor activity, because we're all on computers all day, so put that out of your head. No, spear phishing is just like phishing, but you are trying to target one particular person instead. Now, there's the thing. What if I received an email that said, hey, Ben, we noticed that you stayed at hotel such and such, and we have a special offer for you, or there's problems about your payment, or, you left something at the hotel, you need to come check it out, something of that nature. I'd be like, well, if it hits the spam folder and it gets caught, I'd be like, whatever. But what if the email, even though it hits the spam filter, still gets hit with my full name, the days that I checked in, the hotel that I checked into, the room number? It has all this personal identifying information, and they have a link in there that says, hey, you need to resolve an issue, click here. At first, I would say, there's probably not an issue, but at the same time, they have enough personal data. if this is affecting thousands of people across the globe and only a fraction of them actually fall for that kind of setup, that is a very good way to get into a lot of people's accounts. And then on top of that, if this has to do with US military, you can see where it even gets even worse. Because if these hackers can say, I can get you into a compromised email account of a US military official or staff member or government official, that's worth money in its own right and can be very, very, very dangerous for even our government. It makes a lot of sense. So the unsecured database was discovered on September 13th and closed October 2nd after the VPN mentor got in touch with the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. From what we can tell, the company has Israeli roots. U.S. CERT was initially contacted but failed to respond to the alert. One would have expected the U.S. to take the exposure of military-related data rather more seriously. So U.S. CERT seems to have dropped the ball on that one. Let's see. So our team viewed highly sensitive data exposing the personal details of government and military personnel and their travel arrangements to locations around the world, both past and the future. So I guess upcoming dates of travel and when they should be there, where they're going to be, which are dangerous in their own right. They said that this represented a massive breach in security for government agencies and departments impacted. Yeah, there you go. Luckily, one last time, I'm glad that this was found by a security professional, but I guess it's up to the server to really identify how many people accessed the data before the security researcher themselves found it. But that's the thing that just gets me, is that these servers that are always unsecure or not secured or don't have passwords or are, very, very weakly impact or very, very weakly protected. Why? Most of the hacks I've heard lately have been from poor password management. It is frankly shocking. And I guess it has to do with the reason that servers and, just the way that the internet works, there's so many interconnected parts, it's hard to secure them all just by the order of magnitude of how many parts that there are, how many servers there are, and how many that they use. Even if 0.0001% of servers are unprotected, odds are information that is sensitive is going to be flowing through them, and it's going to happen every single day. What are you going to do? But I found that one interesting, and yeah, so again, that one from the Inquirer and Mr. Roland Moore Collier. There you go. So let's go ahead and continue on. We've just spent the first, almost half the show talking about security breaches. Let's talk about something else. Okay. This one, Instagram is hard enough to really buy into the platform, to really look at social media and study it and be influenced by it. That must be a very rough lifestyle. Don't get me wrong. Computer America has an Instagram account, by the way, at Computer America. Computer America has Twitter and Facebook and all the good stuff, but we don't encourage anyone to really partake in the lifestyle of being constantly bombarded by social media because it will make you feel bad. Social media will make you feel bad. Just as a personal kind of thing, if you want to read that article that I talked about earlier about the 5 scariest things, social media was one of the topics. Too much social media can be a bad thing. And it looks like even Instagram acknowledges that to an extent. Instagram, of course, owned by Facebook. Instagram bans the Cosmetic-Surgery filters. Check this out. And judging by the picture here in the article, did you really need Instagram to tell you that these surgery filters are bad? I don't know. So Instagram is removing all augmented reality AR filters that depict or promote cosmetic surgery amid concerns that they harm people's mental health, which as a society, I think that we do focus a lot on physical appearance. Trust me, I do it myself. But to say that, hey, if only you could, or look how much better you could look. Here's a filter, change everything. Go under the knife, physically change your face to appease other people more. Very unhealthy. So research suggests face-changing filters can make people feel worse about the way that they look. Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, said the ban was promoting well-being, saying that, quote, "We are reevaluating our policies. We want our filters to be a positive experience for people. And while we are checking with our policies, we will remove all effects from the effects gallery associated with plastic surgery, stop further approval of new effects like this, and remove current effects if they're reported to us." And here on the, here if you're watching the video portion, you can see a tweet by Mr. Daniel Mooney saying that, hey, plastic surgery and what they would do, essentially. So in August, an update to the Instagram app allowed users to create their own virtual effects, such as animation and custom face filters that can be superimposed on images and videos. Many popular filters mimic the effect of extreme cosmetic surgery. Another filter, Fix Me, showed how a cosmetic surgeon marked a person's face before procedures, which I'm sure is what you're looking at. The creator, so this gentleman is the actual creator, told him that Fix Me was only ever supposed to be a critique of plastic surgery, showing how unglamorous the process is with the markings and the bruising. His intention was not to show a perfect image, as you can see in the final result. Perfection is overrated. I can see where Instagram is coming from, but for as long as some of the most followed accounts on Instagram are of heavily surgically improved people, removing surgery filters won't really change that much. I see where he's coming from. His quibble is that even though his filter, Fix Me, was essentially showing cosmetic surgery and, maybe even to some extent promoting it, his problem is that even though his filter is caught, what are you going to do about the actual influencers, the people who are on Instagram, who have had that kind of, who have had that kind of surgery, so that they look different than they did before? Because his is just a filter, but influencers on the platform, they've changed their face. They've had all the work done in the world, and those are probably much more prolific than any one particular filter. What are you going to do about that? I don't think Instagram is any closer to banning this idea that Instagram is not any closer to banning people who have had plastic surgery. But you see where he's coming from. He said that most people just pass filters off as girls having fun and to just let girls enjoy things. But when you haven't posted a photo without one of these filters since 2016, then it's clearly is something deeper than just fun, one of the users said on Twitter. However, some users said that they would miss the effect. Has Instagram also considered me and what I'm supposed to do when I'm having a day where I look more clapped than usual? Old haggard witches need to look stunning too. And unfortunately, that is the attitude that I really warn against with with my articles and things like that, is that if you're not looking, as you put it, as good as you think you should, that's life. Not every day is supposed to be your perfect day. You should be confident in yourself to say that, even if I feel like I don't look my best, I am still my best. And that's good enough. But instead, users get this idea that if you don't have that stunning, perfect photo, then, that's not enough. That kind of attitude can lead to severe problems, especially in teenagers and younger people who are just first developing their sense of self. And if their self, as they see in the mirror, is different than those that they show online, and they expect the online as opposed to the mirror, that leads to problems, a lot of problems. So let's go ahead and move away from this. So obviously some of these filters are getting removed from Instagram. And really the bigger picture with this is that Instagram is trying to protect people's mental health. That's different. That's new, and it's tough, but best of luck to them. Let's get something into a little bit more techie. And by a little more, I mean a lot more. And hopefully Google can be believed. Although the headline is just so jarring that I don't know what to do with it. Google officially lays claim to Spain. Yes, that's right. España is now the official property of Google. No, that's a joke. I apologize. Google officially lays claim to quantum supremacy. So check this one out. This one published in Science News, independent journalism since 1921. Good for them. They said, and by Emily Conover, quantum supremacy is here, researchers from Google claim. For the first time, a quantum computer has solved the problem that can't be performed by a standard computer, at least not within a reasonable amount of time. Google announced October 23rd, so just today. This milestone, known as quantum supremacy, is a long anticipated step towards useful quantum computers. So anyone out there who's interested in quantum computers, if you really want to hear about this straight from someone who can speak with authority from this, I believe it was back in February, we had an interview with IBM. We had another one about a year and a half before that. We have talked to 2 lead researchers in quantum computers here on the program. Trust me, we have talked about this. My understanding is so rudimentary that I will say quantum computers, they will do a lot. They will change a lot in this world. They are not the catch-all. As soon as we have quantum computers, we will have flying cars and everyone will be happy. No, their calculations are going to be slowly improving over the next 10, 20, 30 years to the point where quantum computers will eventually have the qubits or the quantum bits available to do these more complicated problems. And even though quantum computers have been out for the past, 10, 15 years, and by out, I mean in research laboratories, only now with, and even actually their qubits are actually only 53. I think IBM was working with one that could do 120. But still, only just now, even, a decade or more past when we have a working quantum computer, are we just now finding problems that we can solve using our very limited access to the technology. So the researchers performed the task with a chip consisting of only 53 qubits, the quantum version of the bit found in everyday computers, but obviously the qubit can be either a 1 or a 0, just like a regular bit, or it could be both or neither at the same time. That's why these things are so powerful, is that they can, right now we have, I would say trillions. We have millions of transistors that happen or that are stored on a CPU. But as soon as we have a quantum computer that can do these on a similar format that we have, they're going to be infinitely more powerful. They said that it's fascinating that we can do something so powerful with such a small chip, and that was by a researcher, a physicist at the University of Technology in Sydney, who was not involved with the study. But don't expect quantum computers to take over. The calculations Google's quantum computer performed was not a particularly useful one. Instead, the task at hand was one that was designed to play to quantum computer strength and be difficult for a classical computer. So this reminds me a lot of the article about the first ever artificial intelligence passing the Turing test. And the Turing test has to do with the idea that at what point does an artificial intelligence, does a computer trick a human, or in this case with the Turing test, a panel of humans, into thinking that, am I talking to a person or am I talking to a computer? And I remember that article as well, because that one was it was an artificial intelligence who said, hey, I'm from Russia or Mexico or whatever. They essentially said that English was not their native language. And they made a lot of grammatical mistakes and spelling errors and things like that, that if they tried to say, hey, I'm a native English speaker, they would have, caught it right away. But because they said, they weren't a native English speaker, it fooled a majority of a panel into thinking that this was a real non-native English speaker, but still a real person. Technically, it passed, but to most people, it wouldn't pass. Like this article, the Turing test played to its strengths very, very well. It passed by a slim margin, but it still passed. This seems to be the same thing. They said that some researchers are also pushing back against Google's quantum supremacy claim, arguing that the milestone has not yet been achieved. So for about a month, rumors have been swirling among scientists that Google would soon report its achievement of quantum supremacy. The company's official announcement in a study published today in Nature follows the apparently unintentional posting of an earlier version of a study on a NASA website in September. The paper was taken down, but copies of it persisted and were shared among researchers. Because, as we found out, once something is on the internet, it's there forever. That's just the way it is. So the concept of quantum supremacy has attracted controversy, and the term lends itself to hype because obviously quantum supremacy, it has quantum, which is always an attention getter. It has supremacy, as in you are the best of the best. It is time to be supreme. It has supremacy. It's a very attractive term, but does it actually mean anything? And like they said, some physicists prefer to focus on metrics that imply practical usefulness, which supremacy does not. So here's what it actually did. Using the computer named Sycamore, Google researchers performed a task called random circuit sampling. Essentially, the team performed a sequence of randomized operations on the qubits. It's literally as if the code was chosen at random, says the computer scientist Bill Pfefferman. And you can see a diagram here of what they were trying to do. Then the researchers measured the values of all the qubits. After the repeating process a couple of times, the team got a distribution of numbers that was close to random, but not quite, thanks to quantum effects. The resulting distribution is very difficult to calculate via a classical computer, and while it takes Sycamore 200 seconds to repeat the sampling process 1,000,000 times, a state-of-the-art supercomputer would take 10,000 years to do the same task. Again, the difference between 200... So, here's the thing. The difference between 200 seconds and 10,000 years is clearly a lot. But this does not mean that any task performed by a traditional supercomputer would be infinitely faster. Whatever the ratio of 10,000 years to 200 seconds, it doesn't mean that any process done by a supercomputer is going to be done that much faster by a quantum computer. It just means this particular experiment, because it was so perfectly tailored to what a supercomputer can do with its qubits. It said that with the first quantum computation that cannot reasonably be emulated on a classical... Let's start over. With the first quantum computation that cannot be reasonably emulated on a classical computer, we have opened up a new realm of computing to be explored. That's what Google wrote today. That's because quantum supremacy is a challenge to an idea known as extended Church-Turing thesis, a principle of computer science which states that all reasonable types of computation can be performed by classical computers. If the supremacy is correct, it will be the first violation of that principle. So, clearly, this is a type of computing that cannot be done or cannot reasonably be done by a classical computer. But it's not really useful. I mean, it is literally a series of random numbers, a random pattern that can be identified by a quantum computer infinitely faster than by a traditional, than a classical computer. Is it useful for anyone? No. But it does kind of prove that there is one instance where this type of computation is more suited for, not classical computers. Even before Google scientists officially unveiled their claim, researchers from IBM were challenging it in a paper posted to a website. IBM researchers suggested that these calculation that Google says it would take 10,000 years could instead be performed in 2.5 days on a classical computer using an improved technique, though it would still require the most powerful supercomputer on the planet. Which, 2.5 days on a supercomputer as opposed to 10,000 years, definitely more reasonable. 2.5 days versus 200 seconds, still a pretty big gap there. I would just say 2.5 days is still something that is within the realm of reason. No one's going to rent a supercomputer. No one is going to actually do this to challenge it, but it shows that it's possible. So IBM has a competing quantum computing effort, which obviously has also developed a 53-qubit quantum computer. IBM and Google, I love it when they fight over this because it means that just like the space race or anything else that has two large entities competing against each other, it means that they're both going to try harder and harder. So IBM has not yet used a supercomputer to perform such a computation, so that leaves the quantum supremacy result in a gray territory. I think that IBM is still working on how to get more out of their supercomputers, more out of their quantum computers. It's just that, trying to be the first to snatch away the title really doesn't mean all that much. But having an effective and working supercomputer, or I keep saying super, having an effective and working quantum computer, that will make either IBM or Google a lot of money. Like taking this term or this title that has no meaning, whatever, actually having a product ready to sell, that is going to change these companies big time. So they said that in the end, this experiment is about building the most powerful quantum computer in the world right now and showing that, and things are working well. And once physicists master the control of quantum computers, the machines could be scaled up to assist with useful problems, like studying the physics that underlies chemical reactions, or even cracking encryption techniques to secure online communications. Quantum supremacy is a step in that direction. So I'll leave it there. If you need something positive to take away from this and why quantum computers, why you should be looking forward to it, imagine if down to the smallest detail you could predict how not only how hurricanes would hit, where they would hit, how much water they would dump, which areas would be flooded and not flooded, and you would know down to the street address which houses had to be evacuated. That's something, weather prediction with quantum computers could certainly do that. And weather modeling. If you needed to, instead of going through this long and tedious process of developing new synthesis for medication, something that would work with, side effects and things like that, to be able to do all of that digitally on a quantum computer, you would have medications that instead of taking years to come to market would take, minutes to come up with. and you would know everything about that medication right there. It would simplify the entire process. Quantum computers are going to be a very, very good thing when they finally come out. What Google did, it's great. I mean, hey, anything that gets people talking about quantum computers, I love. Is it useful? No, but it's good. So, with that being said, we have like time for, at this rate, one more story, but we're going to try to squeeze a couple of these in. Scary. Let's go with scary. U.S. Air Force. Yes, the military. U.S. Air Force gets its first anti-drone laser weapon from Raytheon. Hey, lasers. Love to see it. And if you're watching the video portion, we'll have the video playing here in the background. But essentially, Raytheon has delivered the first anti-drone buggy to the Air Force just over the year after it introduced the technology. It's a high-energy laser system mounted on a small all-terrain vehicle, which uses electro-optical infrared sensors to detect and track drones. So they'll know exactly, even though there may not be a heat signature or anything like that, they'll be able to perfectly target these drones. After it identifies and tracks the unwelcome flying device, it then neutralizes it with its laser in a process that takes just a few seconds. And man, this thing's pretty darn cool. So obviously, it's hopefully not going to track birds by accident. But Raytheon says that the system can draw power from a standard 220 volt outlet and can deliver dozens, it didn't mention any kind of exact number, of laser shots on a single charge. However, it can also be paired with a generator if they need it for extended period. You can see where the Air Force or just the armed forces in general would be very interested in this, because if you had a convoy, or if you set up base and you needed, or you could set one of these things out, and it would automatically track any kind of drone in the area and take it down with a laser. No kind of projectile, no, waiting for someone else to come out and take care of it. No, the laser itself just destroys it. That would be a huge boon for these in-field operations. So let's see. So it will train operators on how to use the system while testing how effective it is in the real-world condition. We're guessing that the laser-equipped buggy would be used to prevent enemy drones from collecting information on military bases. So, drones and the war on drones, it's getting there. It's getting better. We're finally getting tools that aren't hawks with nets or other drones or things like that. Now we're finally getting lasers to take out drones. Looking forward to it. So that was pretty cool. Why don't we go ahead and move on over to Huawei. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Huawei. We've talked about China. Not looking to get into that whole mess, but this does have me interested. The Huawei Mate, or Mate, however they say it over there, the foldable Huawei Mate X phone. It was nearly ready for launch, but only in China. It's launching the phone in China on November 15th for about $24,000. And you can see a mock-up of it here. This article by Engadget, John Fingus. So they said that you do get 5G, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage for your trouble. Although there's no Samsung-like concierge service, there is about $380 screen repair service, which you might just need when the fragile foldable display sits on the outside. The company also teased that a slightly upgraded Mate XS, kind of reminiscent of iPhone in the iPhone 10s. You can see where they copied it. Is due in March with the new Kirin 990 processor with built-in 5G support as well. So if and when you see the Mate, 10, I guess I'll go with the 10 instead of the Mate X. The Mate 10 outside of China still isn't clear. Huawei told Engadget that its release strategy depends on 5G rollout in different areas, and that we'd add that the US trade restrictions may also play a role. The Mate 10 is already a tough sell given its price and early technology, but it won't have the option of running Google Apps. That would make it a non-starter for those would-be customers who aren't deterred by the price. Huawei, their smartphone division is pretty much dead on arrival. If the US and China doesn't figure out this whole trade dispute, which, again, huge mess, not being able to run Android apps, not having Android operating system, and then on top of that, $2,400 for something that no apps are really all that optimized for because no one has a foldable screen as of this moment. I can't imagine this getting any kind of traction whatsoever. So there you go. Let's go ahead and continue on. Huawei, best of luck, but that thing is just not going to do well. Maybe inside China, but not outside of China. Let's talk about, let's see, all these are so depressing. Okay. Because we talked about this yesterday, the news about SpaceX, I'm sure it's a very carefully coordinated effort to get more views, more eyeballs, things like that, and talk about SpaceX as much as possible leading up to this announcement. So why not? Let's go ahead and talk about them. SpaceX plans to start offering Starlink broadband services in 2020. There you go. SpaceX President Gwen Shotwell said that the goal is to complete 6 to 8 Starlink launches to get sufficient coverage to start offering the service to consumers in 2020. And really, that's the interesting part, is that they aren't going to wait for their 30,000 plus satellites to make it into orbit. No, that's going to give you amazing coverage all the way around the world. But until then, depending on where you launch them, what orbit they take, that kind of thing, launching a couple batches, which may have a couple, maybe a dozen or so different satellites, you could at least get enough coverage for, let's say, parts of the US to start offering the service and start making money and getting people comfortable with the idea of a space satellite signal. So SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, of course, sent out that tweet that we all know about, saying that they sent the tweet via Starlink, and hey, it worked. Shotwell said that SpaceX will need to complete 6 to 8 Starlink launches, including the one that already took place, to ensure continuous service in upper and lower latitude bands, saying that, quote, we need 24 launches to get the global coverage. And every launch after that gives you more and more capacity. Saying that the company caused a stir last week when they wanted to approve spectrum for 30,000 additional Starlink satellites to build the world's largest low Earth orbit broadband constellation. This was in addition to 12,000. So I guess we're up to 42,000 satellites that SpaceX is looking to put into orbit. That's a lot of debris. Luckily, I don't think these things are all that big, but 48,000 of them, they don't have to be that big to be that cluttered. Shotwell said that many of the Starlink features are being tested by the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory under a program called Global Lightning. And they said that SpaceX received a $28 million contract to test over the next 3 years different ways in which the military might use Starlink broadband services. Of course, I've been focusing on the consumer side because Computer America is a consumer technology-oriented show, but you can see where the military always having the capacity to have an encrypted communication among one another anywhere around the world. You can see where the military would, of course, love something like that. But hey, just because the military is very interested in it doesn't mean that consumers won't benefit from it. You could take a look at things like the GPS system that we all know and love, that we all have GPS in our cars and our phones. That was an exclusively military oriented technology that, hey, the GPS has revolutionized how we operate in society. So still a good thing. SpaceX will hire a whole new workforce to deal with sales, tech support, and product engineering. User terminals are a major concern, saying that the more engineering we do on our terminal, the less service people will have to hire. So when consumers sign up, they're going to receive a box from SpaceX with a user terminal and a cord, and how that gets connected and where the terminal should be placed in someone's home are still issues to be ironed out. Saying that, quote, we still have a lot to do to get that right. Knowing Elon, he wants everything to be beautiful, so the user terminal will be beautiful. I guess what they're saying there, oh, hey, music in the background. I guess what they're saying there is that the terminal, think of it kind of like a router or modem that you would have for, probably closer to a modem that you would have for a traditional ISP, but instead, that modem would have to be placed somewhere that it could capture the signal that is sent from the stations that are then connected to the satellite broadband. Up until this point, if you've had the displeasure of using satellite broadband, it's just not a pleasurable experience, but in a lot of cases, it is the only experience you have access to. So maybe with this captured market, if they can get it right, if they can do it well, then potentially, hey, if they get the price somewhere around $80 to $100 and it's a good connection anywhere, this is going to be a very impressive feat and amazing for everyone out there. But with, with 42,000 satellites to send up, they got a ways to go. Let's see what they can do. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. We are just about done for the day. I want you to tune in tomorrow, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. And until then, thank you so much. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.